Hello, this is Ross Bliley from the podcast Pigskin Tales. This podcast is sponsored by Sterling Soap Company. With products sold throughout 41 locations around the globe, Sterling Soap Company has a unique assortment of products to choose from for your loved one for the holidays. Handmade artisan soaps created by Roderick and Amanda Lovin since 2012, these products are affordable and provide great value. Act now and save on your shipping costs. If you purchase $75 or more, your shipping cost is free in the United States. Shop now online at sterlingsoap.com. Face off with Firefly Publishing for another drop into the fascinating world of pro hockey history with Hockey Hall of Fame True Stories 2. Following his bestseller, hockey historian and writer Eric Zwig opens the doors to the Pro Hockey Hall of Fame, revealing a treasure of untold tales, bizarre incidents, and captivating trivia that will leave the most devoted puckhead astounded. Just to name drop a few of the players he's included in this book are Wayne Gretzky, Jaromir Jagr, and Bobby Hull. Hockey Hall of Fame True Stories 2 is a must-read for pro hockey fans who crave more than just scores and statistics. Mr. Zwig invites you to uncover the true stories that have shaped the sport, ensuring that you will never look at the game of hockey the same way again. So skate on over to Amazon.com, Target, and Walmart to get your copy now.
We'd like to welcome everybody back to the Footballers Family Podcast, and I just want to talk a little bit about the SEC football right now. We'll talk a little bit maybe about the playoffs coming up, but right now I'm looking at the conferences coming up and just looking at their top teams. American Athletic Conference, good gracious, y'all. I believe at the beginning of the year people were picking Memphis to do it, but right now it looks like it's Army and Tulane coming in. But the team, Big Ten is another thing. I was looking at the playoff picture coming up, and you have in this particular playoff picture 4 teams that could be in it. 4 teams. Indiana is the darling of the Big Ten. I believe the best team in the Big Ten is Oregon, but Indiana, 10-0, 7-0 in the Big Ten. Their biggest story or their biggest threat's coming up pretty soon with Ohio State in a couple of weeks. They have Purdue at the end of the year. I think they'll beat Purdue. Ohio State is the big thing. So if Indiana wins that, I believe they win. I believe they will win the Big Ten at this point. Oregon will have a say in it, but Indiana will beat. They'll be 9-0, 12-0 overall, and I think that's just how that's going to work. If Ohio State loses, because Ohio State has, I have 3 more games coming up. The big one is against Indiana. If they beat Indiana, and I believe they'll run the table. Other than that, Oregon should run the table as well. But if I look at this correctly, Oregon has Wisconsin and Washington coming up, so that's not a problem. I think they'll win that one. But Indiana has to beat the they have to beat Oregon, or excuse me, they have to beat Ohio State. That to me is going to be a fun game to watch. And I believe that if you look at that game, you're going to see a potential championship team with Ohio State could be in the championship game. But if Indiana wins and beats Ohio State, you're going to see that there's a good chance that Indiana can make a deep run in the playoffs. It's confidence. That's the big thing I love to see. It's confidence. Big 12. Big 12 had a couple of teams that were mentioned in playoff hunt, BYU and Colorado. I think BYU, let's see who they got coming up. BYU has Kansas coming up, and then Arizona and Houston. I think they can run the table with that. Colorado, on the other hand, which is 2 games back with losses and overall, should win out. They have Utah, which I don't think Utah is going to be that. Utah is not going to be an easy out, but that's still a thing coming up. Kansas and Oklahoma State. Now, Oklahoma State, again, will not be an easy out, but at the same time, you're looking at a team like Colorado, who is just doing great this year. So you're looking at BYU, Colorado, uh, have a potential of making the playoffs. Whoever wins the Big 12 will be in the playoffs, but we'll see what happens there. Going over to Independence right now, I'm hearing nothing but um, Notre Dame, Notre Dame being in it. UConn's having a great year, but I'm hearing Notre Dame is in this because of their ranking and how they're doing. Pac-12, Washington State's have a good year. Let's just leave it at that. I really hate that the Pac-12 has fallen down as much as it has. I think it's a great league, and people just left for money. Coming over here to the SEC now. The one thing about the Southeastern Conference that people probably hates is how much attention it gets. And I really think that you may be right. They get a lot of attention. But as the commercial says, it just means more. I'm an SEC fan. I don't understand what that means. It just means more. It just means more football, probably. We get rated here in the South. You're talking Kentucky and Missouri and now in Texas and Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida. Now we get hit all over the place, Oklahoma as well, with just how great the SEC is. But I guess it's dependent upon your location. It depends upon your location. I don't have any TV. I have a couple streaming services. Paramount's one I have so I can watch my Titans lose. Uh, I can do that on a Sunday. But I look at how the SEC is portrayed here in the South, and it's almost as if it is a religion in and of itself. Now, I don't believe that's correct way to view it, but people view it that way. The SEC is a religion in and of itself. We have football teams like NFL football teams in the South. You have Jacksonville, Tampa Bay. You have in North Carolina, which is not a SEC state, but you have Carolina. You have the Titans. You have Dallas and Houston. You have these teams that make up Atlanta, the Falcons. You have these teams that make up the NFL. But the problem with all that is these teams are relatively new. Relatively new. Dallas is older. Houston, the the Titans now, they're older. You have the Saints, but the Saints are in New Orleans. That's not a SEC school. You have the Louisiana with LSU, so you have the Saints down there. But if you were to ask more people in this area what team they follow in the South, especially, you're not going to find a lot of NFL teams. Their primary focus in Tennessee here, especially, when you go from the Appalachian area to the middle Tennessee over to the Tennessee River, which is just right close to me, which marks the divide between Middle Tennessee and West Tennessee, you're going to find that most people from the Appalachian area over here have orange in their blood. I'm a little different. I'm more of a pro guy, as you know. But you're going to find there's a lot of people who have orange in their blood. You go down south in Alabama. When I was there, I found the closer I was to Tuscaloosa, if you wore blue or orange, you're going to die. Just the way it is. You go further south and you'll find it more blue, but in most of the state, it's crimson. Same thing in Mississippi. Depending on where you are, your Ole Miss or your Mississippi State. Florida has Florida. LSU is over there in Louisiana. Texas is a little different because Texas has so many schools in there. But you're either a Longhorn, an Aggie, but you're more likely to be a Longhorn or a Cowboys fan. It's kind of hard to figure out which one you are. You're going to be one or the other. Maybe both, but you're going to be one or the other. Arkansas is a little different. Kentucky's a little different. South Carolina is a little different with the Gamecocks there. In Georgia, in a very niche area, you are a Georgia Tech fan. If you have a smaller college, that's the team you follow. But you're probably grew up, if you were in the Atlanta area, you probably grew up a Falcons fan. But if you were in the wider area of Georgia, you're a Bulldogs fan. South, north, south, east, and west. Of course, there's areas that are different, but you are a Georgia fan. And that's how the SEC is. And I'm sure that is the way it is in Michigan, Ohio. If you go over to Oregon, if you go up to other areas, I'm sure that is Kentucky. It's Louisville in its area, but for the most part, it's Kentucky blue. And it's not because of football, it's because of basketball. Basketball made that state, Kentucky, blue. Again, Oklahoma. You're an Oklahoma fan, it's a football team or football fan. So, it's college football, I should say. So I'm looking at this and kind of giving you a background because I'm looking at this. There are 6 teams that have a potential buy into the playoffs by winning the SEC. Right now, the two most dominant teams, I say the dominant, the two teams on the top, Tennessee, Texas A&M. Tennessee has a big game this week. They're playing Georgia. Georgia is number 4 in this rankings. They're at 5-2. Georgia has to beat Tennessee and hope that Texas A&M loses a game, Texas loses a game, or Texas beats Texas A&M or vice versa. Georgia right now, Tennessee, Texas A&M, and Texas control their own destiny. Just win out. Texas has to beat Texas A&M to get in. Tennessee has 3 winnable games. The Georgia game coming up. Then they have UTEP, and then they have Vanderbilt. I love to see Vanderbilt beat them, but I don't think that's going to happen. I had Vanderbilt at 2-10 at the beginning of the year. Now I have them at potential 8-4. They have LSU, and then they have Tennessee. My guess is they're 6-6, and I'm going to LP or Nissan Stadium to watch the Music City Bowl, which I am cool with, absolutely cool with. Ole Miss has the potential to get in. Alabama has the potential to get in, but what they have to have is that they have to win out and hope some of the teams at the top just mess themselves over. Tennessee has to lose. Texas A&M has to lose. Texas has to lose multiple games. Georgia uh, will win. If Georgia beats Tennessee, then they'll be 6-2, and they'll be 8-2 overall, and they got a couple more games coming up. Georgia could be back in there. Don't count them out. But see, this is the best part about a 12-team playoff. Of course, it's more money to the NCAA, more money to these schools. We know it's all about the money. We do know that. Now that the players are getting paid, it may be a little different to view it, but it's all about the money. But the one thing I like about this is that if you look at potential people being in the playoffs, SEC Big Ten, you have Independent, you have Boise State coming up. You have different teams coming in, but there's a lot of conferences that are buying with multiple teams coming up, SEC being one of them, or Big Ten being one of them. I just love seeing Big 12, obviously, but I love seeing how much competition's going on here. I was not a huge college fan growing up, liked it, but I was a Vanderbilt fan, so I didn't get a lot of victories. It kind of went away from college, but now watching this is exciting. You only have at the most 3 more games left. 3 more games left. But here's the problem as well. I believe right now, if Texas doesn't do anything, Tennessee doesn't lose, it's Texas A&M Tennessee in the SEC championship game. What if one of those teams loses and gets knocked out of the tournament, even though at the time they will be Texas A&M would be 10-2. Tennessee will be 11-1 if they win out. Texas A&M would be 10-2 because they would beat Texas. Texas would also be with 2 losses. They'll be 10-2 as well. But Texas A&M would have the tiebreaker, and they would be in the SEC championship game. What if Tennessee loses? The thing about conference championships, and I don't see this happening, but this is the doomsday scenario, that one team that could potentially be in the playoffs loses, gets knocked out because the SEC had one extra game. Now, this has been the theory for many years. What if that happens? Well, again, that's why you watch the game. That's why you see all these things, and that's why you pay the big bucks to go to the games. That's why you enjoy it. Texas, you got a scare from Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt did great. Did great. Then they won a game, and then they get ranked again, and then they mess up and lose to South Carolina like that. They get kicked out. Then they play LSU down in Baton Rouge. Well, LSU looks very beatable after what Alabama did to them last week. So could Vanderbilt beat LSU and then lose to Tennessee, or could Vanderbilt lose to LSU and then beat Tennessee, or could Vanderbilt beat both teams at the same time, in 2 different weeks? That's why we watch the game. Thank y'all for listening to the Football's Family podcast.
Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, aka the Football History Dude, and I hope that you enjoyed this recent episode presented by the Sports History Network and were able to learn some good old-fashioned sports history knowledge nuggets. I started the Sports History Network back in 2020 with the mission to help podcasters find a community of like-minded sports history nerds, as well as helping aspiring podcasters to start their own shows. We have a little bit over 30 shows on the network right now covering all sorts of sports history, but as far as I'm concerned, we're just at the toothpick in the ocean moment, that can't even figure it out because there's so much more coming. We wanted to create the ultimate headquarters for sports yesteryear, starting with Podcast Network and our website, but we're going to continue to move into other mediums as well. And here's the cool part, because we want you to be part of our team. So if you're interested in starting your own podcast, or maybe being a guest on one of our shows, or who knows, maybe even writing an article for us over on the website. Seriously, all you gotta do is reach out to us on the contact page over at sportshistorynetwork.com. You can be as technologically savvy as a Neanderthal tapping on a stone trying to figure out this whole hieroglyphics thing back in the day. Again, it doesn't matter, because even if you don't understand the whole podcast space, we have a production team that can pretty much help you out with doing everything. All you gotta do, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com, head to the contact page, fill it out. That message goes right to me, and I'll reach out to you as soon as I can. But for now, dude, I'm through if you're through.